Hello, and again, welcome to Bit Depth. I'm Santiago Ramones. Next to me is...
Elecktra Stanislava, hi.
And...
Evan Jarvix, hi.
What do you do? In whichever order that you want to go in. Let's just keep that order going because it's going to become a thing.
Let's go left or right.
Yeah.
You first.
Well, I am a youth care specialist at CSU Youth, and I'm a musician and a sound engineer and a property manager, landlady, and I do booking for some shows and stuff. I don't know. I do a lot of stuff.
Do you sleep?
Yes. More recently, since sadly the route just closed, so I don't have like a full-time booking venue.
Right.
But yeah, I just leveled up to level 8 on my Morrowind replay today. That's how I'm doing.
Right. Evan.
So I guess I would start saying more people probably know me for my music coverage and general enthusiasm for the music scene.
Mm-hmm.
Just going to stuff and writing about stuff. I put reviews out. And I have a thing called MakeOklahomaWeirder.com or Weirder OK on all social media, which is... I used to write for a few other online publications and then just decided to go out on my own after they all folded. And so that's kind of my center for any sort of original Oklahoma music coverage that I can offer, which I'm still working on. I'm still kind of building that platform up. It's taking a while, but that's probably where most people would probably know me from. I also do music myself as Jarvix, Jarvix, solo performer. I do things with a looping pedal, so people know me also for that. To pay the bills, I work at a law firm and pay the bills at a law firm.
Nice.
Yeah.
So then let's start with music. How long have you been doing music and how'd you get started?
Well, I started playing the organ when I was 4. I had a form of childhood anxiety, and I had selective mutism, so I wouldn't talk. And my therapist when I was a kid said, "Well, get her a piano or something to give her like some sort of creative outlet. Music is a language." And we went to like Horn Trader or something when I was a kid, and looking at like Casio keyboards, and I fell in love with an electric organ. So I like self-taught myself on that, and then kind of took over playing for like one of the first churches I went to when I was like 5. There was like an 87-year-old lady that would like, play, and I would play too. And then I started collecting instruments around that time. Did recorder and violin and viola and cello and a lot of the classical stringed instruments, flute. And then about when I was probably like 11 or 12, my brother wanted a guitar. And so he got an acoustic guitar, and he had never been very interested in music. And I wanted to play his guitar. And I was listening to a lot of Violent Femmes, which we're about to go see Violent Femmes in X like in a week. And I picked out Blister in the Sun on the guitar and then was like, you know what? Screw all these classical instruments. I want to be a rock star. I want to play the guitar. And then it's been, I started doing like open mics in the Galileos in the Paseo when I was like 15. And that's also about the time that I learned how to run sound, was for like an open mic there. And I don't know, My brother from another mother and I started a band when we were about like 12 or 13, which is still a thing. We do reunions every couple of years. But yeah, I've always like played music my entire life. So it's definitely like part of me, and not playing would be incredibly weird. It's just, I've shifted from where I started to where I'm at now, so.
Yeah. Evan, what do you got?
I did not start out so young. I think it was like college or after. I was in high school band. I played trumpet and then I played French horn for a while. I did okay there. I really enjoyed orchestra, and I really enjoyed listening to orchestral pieces and things. But I didn't really develop like a taste for music until I like moved out of my parents' house the first time, and kind of got a feel for secular music, which there's a whole couple of other articles and podcasts you can look up about my history with Christian music. I have 2 episodes of The Praise Down with Heath and Alex you can check out, which is a podcast about Christian music and Christian culture, but is not necessarily a Christian podcast, which is great. But without going into all that, it was something I've always wanted to do. I used to even write songs, even like as a kid. But I didn't really ever take it seriously. I was always really doubtful or hard on myself, or, I believed that there's no career for it, so why bother with it? There's always going to be somebody better than you, etc. And then it just got to a point where in my life, everything else didn't work either. And I was like, okay, well, I might as well do what I want to do. So I just started... I picked up the ukulele pretty randomly. They had them on sale at a music store, and they had like it was like $50 for like a pretty decent one that just had cosmetic marks, and I just really loved it. And I didn't really care about playing other people's stuff. I just wanted to make my own stuff. And once I got a microphone and a decent recording software, Fruity Loops. I just kind of went to town with it and started putting stuff up online anonymously on SoundCloud back when SoundCloud was starting to boom, and got a lot of positive feedback on there. Nice. And eventually did my first open mic, which was harrowing. I was very, very nervous. I didn't do an open mic until I was in my mid-20s. And I got started at the Paramount a couple of owners back, and that Paramount mic actually still goes on. It's on its 6th year, I think, now. Cool. But I went back when it was starting and met some people that way, and just slowly kind of got into the music scene as a performer. There's also a really good Gazette article you can read about me on the Gazette from last year, where they talked to me about playing Norman Music Fest. I played the main stage last year, so I got a write-up, and it talks a lot about kind of how I got into the music scene. Part of it was playing music, but part of it was also just realizing it was there in the first place. If I didn't know there was a music scene here underneath everything that I had seen before, I probably wouldn't have ever gone public here with it. I probably would have been strictly internet-based.
Sure.
But once I realized there was a community here, it really helped a lot. And so I've decided to make that pretty much my priority in everything, is just helping that community that kind of helped me find myself. So I guess that would be my story. Just some of it, a lot of it's happenstance, and some of it's just, just giving it a go after lots of self-doubt. So pretty considerable different background from Elecktra here.
I think about as much as you guys are doing music yourself, you're also supporting musicians here in the scene. So how much of, like, I guess percentage wise, how much time do you spend for other people and then for your own music?
Well, up until like this last full year, like from May to May, I would say that I was probably working to put on other people's shows 90% of the time. Hardly anything for myself. I went on hiatus from my full band, Elecktra and the Annihilation Carousel, which was like, it's been bittersweet, but we are working towards like getting back to playing again. And it's like they're like playing with David Carlisle and Nick Morgan from Giraffe Massacre is like my dream come true band. But I still like, I probably spend more time going to other people's shows. And right now I'm trying to make sure that I don't drop shows that I had booked all the way until like September, October. And that has been really hard trying to like move stuff from from one venue to like 6. But no, I've always spent like way more time, like I feel like supporting, even when I play, even though I've been playing for so long, I still consider myself as more of a supporting act than like a headliner act or anything like that. And I do feel that like I'm a damn good stage manager. I'm a solid sound engineer. I mean, I'm very good at playing guitar. But I still I feel like I can do more for other people than I can do for myself. So do what you're best at. And that is, supporting other musicians and comics too. It's not just music. It's like the performing arts community, not just a scene. The whole community, every genre possible. So, So I think I definitely give more than I take.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much. I don't know if I'm quite at 90%, but yeah, it's been a while since I've put out any material, and really the stuff that I've put out, even like the past 2 songs I released were really written for other people for other occasions. Like it's been a minute since I've really done like an album that I've really truly wanted to do. I've been working on stuff here and there, but it's just not come to fruition. And I think if I were just focusing on myself, I would probably be putting music out a whole lot more. Because I know, like in those early days, I would crank stuff out left and right. And it really has fallen quite a bit to the wayside. Part of that's also just doing a lot of shows, though, too. I mean, I don't do a ton of shows. I pick up shows here and there. But I try and, like performing the show is like such a small part of it. I usually end up doing the posters and the events and the invites and all the promo for any show that I do. And even when I do a show, like if it's a show that I'm really taking charge of, I'm trying to do it also in the interests of the other people who I have on. So whether it's a touring band who's coming through or it's some locals that I want to play together and meet each other, there's always another element of it there too. And that's usually what drives me even more than just like my own ego or whatever. So, I think, I definitely go to way more other people's shows than I do like work on trying to do shows myself and listen to other people's music more than I actually spend, working on my own, writing about other people's music more than I write actual music myself, which, is like kind of a bit of a weight on my back because I really want to get creative and really put these ideas that I have out there. but it's just a long road, and I've never done studio stuff before. I've always just kind of like thrown it together on my laptop, and I'd really like to do something more professional going forward, and that just takes a lot more planning and time and investment than I've ever really had to deal with. So that's part of it too. But yeah, I mean, I think definitely I put forth more efforts for other people than for myself. But part of that might also just have to do with a general lack of self-confidence or self-value, which is something I'm working on. So,
hey, me too. And you kind of mentioned how much work goes into putting on a show, or even just writing stuff up for your own shows and then everyone else's. So like, I feel like maybe there's this perception of musicians being just like party animals that don't like do any work. So like, how much work actually goes into the stuff that you guys do, both as performers but also as part of the community?
God, well, it's like I have so much time on my hands right now to like fully book like a show. You know, a lot of it's just like waiting for responses and confirmation and following up. But I mean, you know, putting together any amount of show, setting up an event on Facebook, making sure that like if a band drops or whatever, like, you know, it's only about an hour's worth of work at first. When you add it all together, but like it really can take, you know, weeks of adding up. Well, I worked on this for 5 minutes here and then 10 minutes there, and then I followed up. I was receiving like 50 emails a day for like the last 8-9 months or so, and you know, it's hard to be point of contact and coordinator like on that kind of level, especially when like you're trying to have like office hours, and not just constantly work. Because I'm a mom. I have a boy who's about to be 5 very soon, and so I always try to work, you know, after he's asleep or while he's at school. And sometimes you have these like urgent level things, and it's like, I don't want to, you know, get out of reading to my son, but here my phone is blowing up and it's a near irate diva like musician. And you have to also just cater to other people's egos constantly, which can be very annoying. But like most of the time, you know, like I love when you can just have like one of those shows. I like to play matchmaker too. Like Evan likes to play matchmaker with like local bands. Like, hey, you like not only do you like mesh sonically, but like personality wise, you would all hang out if you would actually like meet. But then I would see a lot of bands that literally only hang out with their bands, like their, you know, or their girlfriends or boyfriends. And so that would be kind of like, oh, you're defeating the whole purpose of putting you on the same lineup. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work. And like, I'm like on several event committees that are like, I wouldn't say day long type festivals, but you know, like half of a day you've got to plan for like 6 hours of stuff. And it's not just music, it'll be music with belly dancing or, you know, drag artists. And you have to like, you can't just book people in different types of performing arts and not like understand like the level of like work that it takes, you know, especially with like drag artists. Like they have to put on their face, they have to put on their bodies. You want to give them a dressing room. It's not like with a band where it's just like, oh, you just do load in. Here's the load in time. This is when you're going to sound check, etc. You know, like you have to like remember that like some performers need, a private area to like touch up makeup. And also just like some of them want to have their outfits be a surprise.
Yeah.
And like working outdoors, like doing like stage management or sound during the summer for festivals, it's like I have heat intolerance and I want a green room or like 8 fans on me if I have to be in like a tent.
Exactly.
So you gotta like keep all of that in mind. But yeah, it's just like the behind the scenes stuff is constant. It depends on how many shows you're putting on, but and I miss, and I'm going to be back there soon where I'm just handling my own stuff, and not having to worry about, 100 different other moving parts. So it's like, oh, this will be nice. I used to find it kind of stressful, but after doing a whole different like level of it, I'm like, oh no, this is easy.
Well, yeah, I mean, I totally agree. The behind the scenes stuff is stuff that people really don't see, especially when it comes to music production and stage production and things like that. I got a really good taste of that when I started volunteering at Norman Music Fest back in the day before I was even doing music myself. I would volunteer at like the main stage and really, see what was going on back there. And I would help, bands load on and load off and stuff. And there's just so much coordination and so many moving parts with something like that. And I mean, that's a festival that's just gotten bigger and bigger, and it's free and it's volunteer run and it's insane. And it's just, there's so much that's, all the spotlight's always going to the artists. And so you're not always thinking about just how many, hands are behind, just one person on stage or one band on stage. So for sure. Which isn't to say that artists aren't busy themselves, because there's lots there too. Of course, if you're going to do a show right, even if you're not, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, the pretty standard image macro that I see goes around is like, I forget the money figures, but it's like you load up so many dollars worth of gear that, you spent so many hours practicing on to like go make $50 in another town or something. Yeah. And like in my world, that would be a pretty good gig. So like, I mean, there's so much that I think a lot of people discount. I wouldn't say in general, but there's definitely a certain populace that sees any kind of artistic endeavors as, not valuable in a capitalist economy. Right. So like
frivolous.
Yeah. Like I remember, I don't know, like anyone who does like a Kickstarter or whatever, it's seen as like, oh, artists wanting to, beg for money and living in their parents' basements. Like I see so many artists get harassed on Twitter just for trying to fundraise for their products. And it's not like, they're just taking money. I mean, there's rewards tiers. I mean, they're paying for something. Like they're paying for something that they value. But music is just dirt cheap now. And, people are happily giving it away for free just for a little exposure. And I think that has somewhat devalued artistry in general, unfortunately. And a lot of times you can just write it off as, okay, well, there's not much to it, but there's so much that goes into it artistically. And not to mention, if you're going to make it in any kind of way whatsoever, it's a pretty common thing that every artist is their own entrepreneur running their own business. You have to have a business mind if you're going to, succeed in that way. And if you're not, then you're really just doing it for art's sake. And you kind of have to live with that you're pretty much going to go completely unknown, because we're not in a world where somebody's going to, seek you out, because there's so much going on and everybody's competing for that attention. So you have to hustle. You really have to push your art, and you really have to, I mean, so much of it is just marketing and just making sure everything's proper. You can't just like, have a show and expect people to show up. You have to get that in front of people's eyes and ears. And even then they might still not care. And, I try to put out posters when I do shows that I care about. And, I make the events. I invite people and I'll still have like 1 or 2 people show up, at best. And it's a whole thing. I know Christian Pearson, if you follow OK Sessions, he posted something on Facebook a couple months back where he was he was like, here's kind of your whole promotional plan. And it's like a whole 2-month plan for each and every show. Here's where you announce it. Here's where you make the event. Here's where you invite people. Here's where you, start doing press releases and start doing guest writings and all this stuff.
In a perfect world.
In a perfect world. Like it's very much in a vacuum thinking. I mean, no offense, but if you're doing 100 shows a year, it's got to be like clockwork.
Yeah.
And it's just unrealistic for a lot of people, I think. And I don't know, it's a lot. Yeah. And even if you do all that, the actual margins you'll see are so slim, you almost wonder if it's worth it. So there's a lot of hustle that goes into it from the business side that I think, a lot of people, especially older people. Sorry, I'm not being ageist, but if you grew up pre-internet and you still see artists as being a label thing where they aren't independent, but there's actually like a label backing an artist and taking care of all this stuff, that's not really the way it is. Labels really are only going to even reach out to you in the first place if they already see you doing this stuff, because then they know that you're viable. They're not investing in artists the way they used to. So it's a whole different world. And so if anybody thinks that you can just go viral and have, a complete career out of it, it's not only, it's, even if it should happen, being incredibly, incredibly rare, it's not what people think it is. There's a lot of work that goes into that for it to be successful. I could go on. We could all go on.
I'm also interested in the amount of work that you do yourself in Make Oklahoma Weirder. And
sure.
It looks like you're just always listening to only this stuff.
Yeah, honestly, that's pretty realistic.
Yeah. I don't think he listens to national music very much.
I do. I just only listen to very specific things. I don't listen as widely as I used to. I used to basically, I would go to guest room and get a block of CDs and spin them in my car and be like, all right, cool, this artist. And right now I feel like probably a solid 90% of everything I listen to is local music.
Okay, so we kind of got into it, but how do you feel about the Oklahoma scene? And more than just music, but just the performing scene in general.
Well, just in Oklahoma City, Norman, the greater metropolitan area. There, I hate to say it, but we're oversaturated with amazing people. And my friend group is mostly performers. And the people that I know that aren't in any way in the music industry don't go to shows. And I've been struggling for a very long time. And this was even before, starting to book at the Root. How do we get that crossover of people that just want to go see their friend's band instead of popping a like on Facebook or being congratulations or bragging to their coworkers that they know someone that's a local celebrity, but they've never even come to a show. They've never in any way monetarily supported them. And I still have not figured out that answer. I do know that working with young kids and youth, because I do rock and roll camp for girls here in Oklahoma City. And then, I just saw last night the School of Rock Oklahoma City kid showcase over at 89th Street. And God, everyone brought a chair. All their grandparents were there. And it's like, hey, if you can keep bringing the family members and, keep building on this, and they aren't disappointed or becoming bitter like me, where it's like, oh, everyone always will talk about how I'm so awesome or whatever. But when I do a show at Sauced and I'm on the lineup, there will be people outside smoking that are there, and they don't even have to pay. It's donations, We'll take tips. And they won't even come in other than to go to the bathroom, and they'll stand in the doorway for about 30 seconds or less. And but then if you go outside and smoke a cigarette, they'll be like, good job. And it's like, you're not even in there. You haven't even heard my music. So I don't know, there's a huge disparity between who is supporting the music, because it seems like it's mostly other performers, or if you have a built-in crowd at a bar, they're going to pay that cover no matter what, because they just want to go there and drink. And it's some of them go and they can say, well, I got my cool points because I was at this show, but they're not actually there to listen, to be quiet and actually let that experience wash over them. We went to go see that show at the Criterion, and
Bon Iver.
Yeah. I wanted to scream, shut up. How, shut up. Just listen.
Yeah.
And that was supposedly one of the better shows they've had there.
Yeah.
Right.
Crowd-wise.
And there was a woman who would not stop talking, and she was right next to us. It was so crowded, and she was so close to us, and she wouldn't stop talking. And about 30 minutes into it, she started yelling at someone to shut up. And I was like, you're the one that needs to shut up. And now you're yelling even louder. But
Bon Iver is quiet music,
yeah.
too.
Well, and it's just I don't feel like people really understand that artists aren't doing it just to be famous and rich. Obviously not rich. There's so little money in original music. You can go to any dive bar in the middle of the country, nowhere, Oklahoma, and watch some cover band play the greatest hits of all the band, and people will eat it up, and they will pay money for that, and they will walk away with $100 a person in a band a night. But the original music, the people that are making art because it's part of their soul, it's not just something that they want to do, it's something they need to do. And there's just not enough people going to see these shows. But then you go to Tulsa, and it seems like there's everyone, oh, well, I'm not playing a gig. I'm over at watching my friend's show, and we hopped through, I don't know how many shows, a month or so ago, and the crowds were 4 times larger at every single venue we went to than any Oklahoma City venue. And I see a lot of my sound homies and booking friends be kind of discouraged because there are touring bands with 1 or 2 amazing local bands, and there will be less than 40 people at a show. And they're having their faces melted by this amazing show. But that's just Oklahoma City. There's probably 400 singer-songwriters in any given genre. There's probably 100 really good hip-hop rappers.
Oh, yeah.
That are good, good to work with. And then there's several that are too consumed with their own stuff to, even show. That's something I've learned. So many hip hop guys they rap over their vocals live, which is frustrating.
Interesting.
But will not.
Oh, it's a thing.
Will not even show up for a load-in. Don't understand what a load-in is, even though you feel like you held their hand during their emails and correspondence pre-show, and then will be mad because they're only getting like a certain percentage of the door because there's a DJ and 7 other artists to pay. But yet they didn't show up on time. They only really stayed for a little bit of a window before and after their set, and they brought absolutely no one, and they have like some of the hugest egos. That goes for almost any genre of music, but I saw a lot with up and coming hip hop, and then like there's I feel like there's hardly any like pure pop. Like there's pop rock, but I feel like there's hardly any pure pop. Sierra Brooke is really the only, and God, my son loves her stuff so much. It's like, and then there's, metal, death metal, technical metal, old school heavy metal. And I love death metal so much. But I'm also starting to get a little too old to almost break a toe in a pit, and punk. I grew up on punk, but also there's a huge divide in the punk scene that, a lot of us are, I guess, more or less becoming like air quote woke, and we're, good people and aging and parents. And then there's some very horrible, abusive people that are still almost like idolized in these scenes. And so a lot of the punk has become very divided because, you don't want to support scum. But yet so many people are still like apologists and deniers to that kind of level of horrible abuse and stuff. But I mean, it goes with anything. There's a huge seedy amount of indie people too. And in Tulsa, knowing like some good friends that are like, DIY, like do it yourself kind of punk. It's one of the most apologist, almost applauding men's boys club up there. It's toxic, and you have to really like look out for who are you booking, and that kind of stuff. And especially I feel I don't know if it's because I'm a woman or if it's just because I'm kind of a gatekeeper, a watcher, a protector of multiple scenes. But anytime you like even semi-publicly discuss that kind of stuff, the amount of backlash and it makes you just not want to have anything to do with anything. But for the most part, Oklahoma City has so much music. We're losing venues. Color Feed in Tulsa shut down like 2 months ago. Chaos House got shut down, a house venue, like a month and a half, 2 months ago. The Root shut down 1 week ago. And I have heard on the rumor mill that some very long-standing venue that I do enjoy frequenting is like in dire straits from an insider source. I will not name that.
That's fine.
But if you value venues, and that are bars even, if you value those places and you value your friend's work, make sure that you're going out to shows. Evan and I sometimes can go to 2 shows in a night. It's
easily.
Yeah. Even if we don't get to see all of the stuff, we drop the $3 to $5 cover Speakeasy's really the only place that does $3. And that's just because people complain, and it's ridiculous.
How dare you make me pay for music?
I know. God, I always joke when it's like a $3 cover. I'm like, this is outrageous. I would rather pay more. But, you $5 cover, $7 cover, $10 cover. People will drop, I don't know how much money to go see people, a little tiny distant dot of someone that they will never be on the same level with, but they could be going and seeing, other people that are just as professional and just as good at performing live, but they just don't want to go see stuff because they want to go see like Garth Brooks for like the 100th time. Or like, what's that? Who's that Hannah Montana lady?
Billy
Billy.
I was about to say like Billy Ray Cyrus, her dad, but yeah, Miley Cyrus.
Yeah, Miley Cyrus, or like, they want to go see that. And it's like, that's not even like, I don't think, yes, there's an experience. They have all kinds of stuff going on. But, I would rather sit close to a stage and be able to see close to eye with a musician and, like actually get to listen to it. And I don't know, I feel like I learn a lot about people from how they lyrically write their music. But I'm talking too much about.
You're fine.
What was the question?
I know, right?
How do you feel about the scene in general?
Oh, yeah. Oklahoma City. I think I agree with most everything Elecktra said here. I do think it's a lot of artists supporting artists, and we haven't really found a way to crack into the public consciousness. I do think Christian and OK Sessions are very much hammering at that glass ceiling of sorts, but I don't know. We'll see. Like, I'm really curious to see how it pans out. Like, because I think like Deep Dew Sessions was a really cool thing. That was like, hey, here's something that's public. But it's like, I don't know. Even something like Norman Music Fest, which was like my window to all of this. I mean, there's still so many people who just, they'll go, but it's just to like have a festival day with their family, and they don't really care that much about the music, or if they do, it's to see like one or two artists.
To see the main stage.
Yeah, and it's like it's like just having a whole bunch of local shows at the same time that just more people show up to, just because they're all already there having their own shows at other times. And so you still have artists supporting artists a lot of times. I do think it does open it up to a greater awareness, but it's not nearly as much as I think the potential is there for. And I do think, based on my limited experience with Tulsa, there's a bit more of it's a bit more embedded in the culture that live music is not a casino band playing hits from the 70s. Like, live music is, it's an original voice. I mean, they always talk about the Tulsa sound up there. And like, if you're a singer-songwriter up there, it's a big deal to be a part of that, You do have the Good Old Boys Club that she mentioned, for sure. And, I mean, unfortunately, the music industry is that, and it's everywhere, no matter where you go. As far as Oklahoma City goes, I think there's a lot of cool stuff that a lot of people just continue to sleep on. And, I mean, I think it says a lot that, like, I mean, there's a lot of people who have done a lot to really put this in front of people's eyes to see. I mean, the Gazette has, one or two features every single week. Yeah. And people have no idea who these people are, even though they've been written about. I mean, there was a show, I was talking to a guy recently who had a show at Resonator, and they had like a touring band that came through that like got a full page spread and everything, and nobody showed up to that show. Yeah. Like 0 people. So it's like, it's a very long fight, I think, for like the public consciousness to even know that this stuff exists. And once you get to that point, it's a matter of getting people to realize that it's something that matters. And then at that point, it's getting people to realize that they have to do something about it, or else it's just going to continue to flounder. And right now, we're still struggling to get people to know that it even exists.
Sure.
So it's so early on. And it's like, I could put posters out and they don't bring people out. But I feel like name recognition is a thing. I mean, over time, you know, people have noticed that I have events. They don't come to them. But it's the first step. If you don't know, knowing is the first thing, you know? And so awareness is a really, really big challenge here. And there's so many, I don't know. It's, I think a lot of it does have to do with original music and original art in general, but especially music. Because if you haven't heard it on the radio, if you haven't heard it in a movie or whatever, or you haven't heard it on the latest meme, I mean, like, that's what people go to shows for, is to hear music that they know.
Yeah.
They don't want to drop even $3 on something that they aren't going to receive or that they aren't going to be completely pandered to on the other side. It's like you have to kind of do one or the other, and it's some people, I think, do a decent job kind of walking that balance, that line between kind of catering and like Mike Hosty's a good one for me. I think he does original material, but he's also like a self-described novelty act. I mean, he does pander, and he will, you know, cater to an audience.
He's very fun and interactive, which works for crowds, and people will get out and dance. And he's also very down to earth, and he wants to chat with you. And I feel that a lot of performers aren't doing what I have like termed retaining crowd. And that's by making genuine connection with the people that actually enjoyed their music and following up. When I played and didn't have to worry about booking stuff, and all I would do was just, you know, run sound or do stage management, stagehand stuff, and then I would just play, you know, I could do a set and then actually talk to people, and people would come up to me, and then, you know, I'd make friends with people, and then they in turn would want to come out again. And it wasn't just like, oh, thanks for liking my music, you know, because I'm so cool. It was like, oh, hey, why did you feel a connection to this? Why did it resonate with you?
Yeah.
You know, because I write a lot of my music is, you know, like to work through trauma and heartbreak and that kind of stuff. So, if you feel that my music resonates with you, I'm like, are you seeing a good counselor? But, you know, like it's nice because you can share an experience, even if it's not like giant flaming lips, rainbow confetti cannon, you know, crazy costume change kind of experience. Like it's just, you know, chill moment of connection.
Yeah. Getting into more of the philosophical type stuff that I like asking. First of all, is there such a thing as bad music?
I like free jazz. Well, I have synesthesia. So that I haven't had it my entire life. I had a heat stroke almost 4 years ago, and my heart stopped for 10 seconds, and I almost died, and my brain fried. And when I came back, I had Bell's palsy, and I was having a lot of problems playing music because the left side of my body was like semi-paralyzed, and I was drooling out of one side of my mouth, so I couldn't really sing even, and it wouldn't come out the way I wanted. It was very frustrating. And I hadn't really listened to music because I was just kind of like, oh, crap. And then one of my friends sent me an album, and I don't remember what it was. And sorry, I listen to Spotify. But I listened to this album and I was just like, whoa, what is this? Because I have mostly projective synesthesia. So I see music. It's like colors. And sometimes that's one of the reasons I love death metal. I've always loved death metal, but like it's so intense, it's visceral already, that it can be like completely like, oh, well, I shouldn't be driving or operating any heavy machinery because all I'm seeing is crazy colors exploding and fireworks and stuff. But sometimes it'll be really subtle. And like people that don't know, I'll be like, it's kind of like the original Fantasia. Where they have the orchestra and, you can see the music. They have different color palettes. So I wouldn't say that there's necessarily bad music. I think that music is art and it's subjective and it's, beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
However, and it's dependent. It really is. Country music. Modern day country music. I'm not talking about, like some Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton is a queen. Yeah. But modern day country music, I don't necessarily get projective. I get tastes and stuff. And I feel like country music tastes like almonds and I can't stand almonds. And it's not with everything. And it's like I love really complex jazz chords. Sometimes it'll taste like cherries or like chocolate. So like it's not always just visual. Sometimes I get these. It's all a weird crosswire, but I don't really get it when I'm playing music. I probably would be incapable of performing. But I do get it like when I'm listening back on stuff. But I hate the sound of my voice. So it kind of almost is almondy too. But yeah, there's no such thing as bad music. And I listen to weird noise, like experimental noise that it's like a guy in an industrial warehouse with a chainsaw hitting a trash can. Like there's no time signatures or anything. Can this even be called music? No, it's just noise and expression. But it's still like, but I enjoy pretty much any kind of music. I just have to find artists that, lyrically are getting with me, or, the right instrumentation. 'Cause I like slide guitar. I think that honestly is what gets me is like an actual slide guitar. I think that's the almond thing. But then I hear it in other stuff and I'm like, wow, that's really adding to it. It's like a nice color or whatever. And that all depends on like keys. But having had that happen, I think more of using like instead of having a scale, I think of like especially when I'm like writing something for the piano, I'm not really thinking about like a scale. I'm thinking about a mode instead now, and it's kind of it's a palette. Just as an artist, a visual artist uses a palette to paint. That is more how I think of composition of music now, is that it's a palette instead of like these boxed square, scales. And I feel like it's opened up a lot of different stuff, but it also gives me like really stupid ideas, like writing a song that you can only hit certain keys on a piano, and like I had like figured out that like to do this mathematical the Fibonacci sequence that I would need 211 pianos, but it would be a great performance piece. But you can only hit what corresponds to the notes, you know, and then you would have like, there was like some point when I was trying to figure it out. It was like, you wouldn't even touch 67 pianos for like so long. I was just like,
you can do it on a computer.
I know. Well, I want one day to just have this ridiculous, how many pianos can I get?
Sure.
Stack them up.
Okay, Go did it for a video.
I know.
Hit a whole bunch of pianos.
I know. Well, it's like, it's, you know, that trope that like The Simpsons already did it. Well, OK Go already did it. You know?
Well, just like with OK Go, you just need a sponsorship to pay for it all.
Right,
Oh, yeah.
that's the thing,
Find a piano company.
Yeah. And a car company so that you can make the video.
Volvo. Give me your money. Class and coffee. It's delicious. I drink like 2 of those every day.
Evan, is there bad music?
Yeah, there is. No, it is subjective. And objectively, there is no bad music. Music just is. There's no bad music. There's no good music. It's all subjective. But that said, there's bad music.
Or rather, music that you don't like.
Subjectively, I feel that there is bad music.
He hardly ever will say what he doesn't like.
I'm pretty nice. If you've read my work, I lay the criticisms down pretty gently. I try to couch them in good intentions.
Sure.
But there is bad music, and to this date, the worst song I've ever heard was a Train song.
Cool.
The song by the band Train, where they literally just lift the everything out of the song Heart and Soul. I don't even remember what
that's pretty disgusting.
It's really bad. I had to tweet about it. I was like, I knew that one day this band would create the worst song I've ever heard, and here it is.
Yeah.
Here it is. And I have a couple guilty pleasures with that band even.
Sure, yeah.
Drops of Jupiter's kind of my jam.
It's pretty great.
But like, even though it's completely ridiculous, but I don't know, Train is very much a sellout. And there's other bands too, for sure. I can't even remember what the song is. Like, I just know it's like, it rips off that melody and those chords, and it's just singing about the song. And then they don't even have lyrics for all of it. Like the third line is just like, ooh. And I'm like, you couldn't even come up with anything, and you're ripping off another song that's like in the public domain. It's just, and it's, the production's really cheap, and it's just clearly, I don't know.
Yeah.
There is bad music. And I think it comes in all genres. I think it comes in all different, you can't just say, well, country music's bad, because I don't really like country music either, generally speaking, but there is country music that I like, for sure.
Well, it's like, I like Americana and bluegrass a lot, and they get lumped into country, so.
It's a weird, it's a whole weird thing. At the time of this recording, we're still in the wake of the whole Old Town Road thing.
I finally,
I guess I'm not familiar with that.
Oh, it's
I had to
by Lil Nas, and
it's got Billy Ray Cyrus.
Billy Ray Cyrus is on the remix. He's on the remix of it. So
it's actually kind of beautiful. It's engineered.
It's not bad. It
is like, whoa, you really did your work. You hit every single, like, everything you needed to do. No, I have a client, and I have trouble waking her up, and that's her favorite song. And so I experienced it one morning, bumping it very loudly on a Bluetooth speaker to see if it would like assist me in my job. And I was like sitting there like being like, okay, well, I understand White people like this song quite a lot. I would not want to listen to it again.
I heard it in like a roofless convertible just blasting the other day. I was like, wow, unironic listening. This is crazy.
Yeah.
You can read up on all this, and it'll probably be old news in a month.
Sure.
The gist of it is basically it's kind of like trap music meets country music.
Yeah,
it's sampled something that's like a banjo line, and so it's like it's really. It's one of those things that whenever the guy who, I don't know, put the song online and like checked the genre boxes, like checked it as a country genre.
Yeah.
And so it soon became like the most, like the number one country song in the country.
Sure.
But, and then Billboard was like,
it's
okay,
fusion.
no, this doesn't count as country. And so they struck it from the country's charts, even though a lot of country music now sounds
Pretty
not
much like that. Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
If you compared that to like Florida Georgia Line or something, not that different. So there's like a whole controversy about
Sure.
where country music is and what it is and everything.
Yeah, well, genre is a
There's a whole
strange
thing.
Yeah. You kind of mentioned it in passing, but is there such a thing as selling out?
Yep.
Yeah, I wish I could do that. I wish that I could eat.
No, you don't.
I wish I could eat
You
all
would
of my
never
pride.
sell out.
I would totally sell out. No, I think I'm like incapable of selling out. I kind of always have like thought that like the term selling out, that's obviously the goal. You want to sell out your venues, and for it to be like, oh, you have compromised all of your core values, integrity, and everything to mass produce formulaic music that is palatable to the masses. Well, that's how you sell out concerts.
Sure. Yeah.
And I mean, I have there's unless you're working in incredibly weird time signatures with modes instead of scales, and you stop thinking about chord progressions in like 3 or 4 like increments, like you're writing something that someone else has written. Mm-hmm. Maybe not lyrically, maybe you're adding in different instrumentation or like voicing, but I mean, you know, it's almost impossible to be completely original with chord progressions, with music. It comes in more with like the lyrics and that kind of stuff, and tempos and time signatures. I actually I decided, and this has been like probably like 12 years ago, I decided that I was going to take the chord progression from Santeria by Sublime, and I was going to write a song but change the time signature a little bit. And I was going to use that chord progression but then reverse it for the chorus. And pretty much I did an experiment on people. I wrote a song, and the song is actually very nerdily about Magic the Gathering.
I love Magic.
Yeah, me too. But
I haven't paid for Magic in about 3 or 4 years, but I still play it.
I have not had time in a very long time to play games. But yeah, I did an experiment, and I still do play that song once in a while. But you know, it really does go to show you that, like, if you could take and get away with it, like the chord progression to any of those like hashtag white people getting lit songs, I don't think anyone could really steal Bohemian Rhapsody's chord progression and get away with it like ever.
Sure.
But you know, Don't Stop Believing, and basic pop hook stuff, if you can take those and put them into a song, you know, people will very much just be like, well, I like that song a lot, and not really go much further than that surface level. So I don't know.
No, that's true. I think. What was the question?
Is there such a thing as selling out?
Such a thing as selling out. Yeah. I mean, I pretty much echo those thoughts. It depends on what you call selling out, because I mean, there's success too, and it's like, what do you call success? Is it defined in your own values, or is it like monetary or fame or whatever?
Yeah.
And is selling out, is it compromising, or is it completely betraying your values? I mean, it's just, no one can agree on exactly what it means, so it's kind of hard to address. But to whatever degree, it does exist. And that would be my answer. Yeah, and I do think to kind of echo that talk about chords and stuff, I mean, everything has more or less been done, but there are certain ways that you can pander, I think. And even if you don't necessarily mean to, like, there's, I don't know. I mean, I think sometimes I make some artistic choices that I'm like, oh, this will play well to an audience.
Sure.
And so it's like, if I have a choice between one thing or another thing, I mean, you could accuse me of selling out because I play Rubber Chicken in my set. I have a rubber chicken and I'll loop it in, and people get a kick out of it.
Yeah.
But it's still a part of me. Like, I think it's fun, and like I think it's hilarious, and I'm gonna keep doing it. But it's like I'm very aware that it's a gimmick, and so it's part of it.
Do you separate art from the artist?
That's a hard question. Yes and no. I am very, like, I stick to my guns about, like, if a person is scummy, I will not support their art. And it can be heartbreaking sometimes to, like, be like, God, I really loved this. I see a lot of people that, especially with, very long dead artists, and maybe we don't know this or that, it's not like the people even around now were alive during some of that stuff. But no, I mean, like, you can't support the art if the artist is horrible. But, people are real people, and they're not always, like, they don't have to always be on, they don't always have to be stage whatever.
Sure.
So, yeah, they're, like, when we're talking about, like, is the output from the artist separatable? Yes and no. Because, people are people, and people make mistakes and change and that kind of stuff. But, you can't support one without supporting the other. And sometimes you have to draw those lines and you have to stick to it. But also, I like to just hang out with friends, which I haven't got to do for a very long time. And, it's not always with that whole, like, hey, we're going to make art. We're just going to be people and hang out. And maybe something might be inspired by that. I've had quite a number of songs be inspired by other people's art. And I don't feel it's, like, in a way that is taking something from that. Sure. I just feel that, like, sometimes it kind of snowballs. Like, that gave me this idea, which is a separate idea. But yeah, it's situational whether or not you can separate the art and the artist. But you got to stick to your values and what you believe in. So, like, you have to be careful. I've been seeing I saw a meme, and there's been a lot of discussion in some of my, like, more private music groups about, like, always, before you get into a black metal band, always search for them on the website for them, the black metal Metallicum or whatever, because there's so much alt-right and racist, horrible propaganda. And it's like, yeah, black metal, let's burn some Christian churches. Okay, well, that's tropey and that's just existent in that thing. And, they're not well, maybe in Norway. I don't know. But, you don't want to be like, God, because you can't really understand what they're about. And you don't want to be supporting something that is,
Potentially a terrorist organization.
Yes. So you got to make sure that, the artists are respecting humans and all of that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so,
yeah.
It can be something that you have to be very aware of, too. And some people just don't have the mental capacity to be aware of that.
This is something I'm still working on. Really figuring exactly where I fall on this whole idea. Because for a long time, I pretty much just did separate the art from the artist. Was always really pretty good at that. And especially since I've gotten into things on a local level where things are more visible and I'm more aware, very keenly aware that, okay, this action that I'm taking has a very close and specific, effect on things. Like, if I endorse an artist that's, somebody who maybe stands for something that is problematic or something, like that's something that's going to have an effect, and it's something I've been working with because I don't know. I think it's easier for me to think about it in terms of movies than music because there's even more distance there.
Yeah.
But I really like Roman Polanski movies, but there's a dude who's got some serious problems, and Woody Allen is another one who I really like Annie Hall and stuff, and I could get into film. He is a little overrated, but I could enjoy those with no conscience, and I have a conscience now, so it's especially, I would say before the Me Too movement, but especially since then, it's there's, if you want to be really technical, there's so few things you should really be supporting out there because the way that all the studios have just conglomerated, there's so few heads out there, and it's just kind of a nightmare, which, I've been leaning more towards independent films lately anyway, so I guess that helps. But it's a whole thing. I think it's really interesting. Elecktra kind of brought up if they're dead or not.
Sure.
I don't want to funnel money into anybody's, whatever, but it's I think, if I don't know. Because R. Kelly's not on Spotify anymore. Isn't that true? And so it's I don't know. If there were ever some part in the future and it's he's obviously not getting money from it anymore. He's dead and his music lives on. It's can I enjoy that music on its own? Because at that point, the money just goes to the studios.
Sure.
But also, they enabled this person to have a career. There's a whole black hole with it. Yeah. And it's I don't know. I'm pretty good in terms of, like she said, with, understanding that certain people are human. I think Tom York is kind of a shitty person.
I love Radiohead.
I love Radiohead, and I will always listen to Radiohead.
And it's are they?
But he's not problematic. He's just a
he's
shitty
just
person.
Yeah, I use the example of Kanye.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's
that's a better example.
Mental health. Yeah. Everyone's got their problems.
Yeah.
It's whether or not you're actually inflicting hurt and pain on other people. Because I separate flaky, horribly unprofessional local musicians that I know are going to be a pain in the ass to work with from their art, because I know that their art is going to be good, and I know that ultimately they're going to show up and do the thing, but they're not out to hurt people.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, and there's a lot of angles you can look at it. I sometimes going back to movies, if an actor's really good, I'm going to associate the person with their art. in that way, where it's like, you know, anytime I see Ray Fiennes, I still think Schindler's List. You know, anytime I see Sam Rockwell, you know, who has some of, like, you know, the most colorful performances out there. All the stuff I saw early on, whenever I saw him in movies, was like, he always played asshole characters. And so it's like I still see him as that. And there's a lot of people who, like, project people's Hollywood personas onto them as people. And so it's just a huge, complex idea that you can just look at from totally different points of view.
All right, last one before we get into, like, religious stuff. What advice do you have for musicians starting out?
Learn how to wrap cables properly.
Oh my God, yes.
I mean, honestly, that's one of the first things.
It'd be really nice, yeah.
Self-care, and I'm not just talking about, you know, taking care of your mental health and giving downtime, but I mean, like, learning how to stretch your hands before you're playing the piano, the guitar, the bass. There's some really good YouTube videos, and I can't think of the name of the lady. She was on this Namaste TV, but it's called Yoga for Musicians. It's hand stretches.
That's cool.
It stretches out your your median nerve, so it prevents carpal tunnel. It'll help with arthritis in the long run. Always do vocal exercises.
Yeah, please warm up.
Even if you're a weird person in your car doing roller coasters, you know, learn how to properly maintain your instruments. And that starts with your own physical body, because you are going to be using them for a long time. Learn what the fuck your gear is like. A DI is called a directed, you know, like people that don't know the difference between, like, an XLR cord and a 1/4-inch cord. Well, just call it a mic cable and an instrument cable, you know, but, like, understand, like, what amps you're using, what instrument make, model, etc. You know, like, understand that stuff and ask questions from people that have been doing it longer. There are no stupid questions. You know, like, those are, like, really basic things, but I mean, and like, you know, kids are going to play music in their garages, and they might not even get to go see a show. And that's just because there's so many, you have to be 21 and up. There's not enough all age venues. And
kids are poor.
And kids are poor. But, you know, you really kind of have to know what you don't know. Like, you have to have a basic understanding. So, like, you know, you might not know about, I mean, I've known grown adults that, you know, they decide finally that they're going to play, and I'm always really supportive, but they, you know, they don't have a pickup in their guitar and they've never sung into a microphone. And, like, that's fine and dandy for an open mic. And boy, I hope that they go to an open mic where they're going to be supported and, like, talked with afterwards in, like, the hey, not, you know, not like you're stupid, but like, hey, I really liked your music. And then kind of judge whether or not they are ready for constructive criticism. But, you know, learn how to work with sound people. Learn how to write a good email. Like, ask questions. I've been seeing, I mean, this is seasoned professional musicians that never bothered to ask venues, what are your production and or rental fees? What are the full details for the show? Is there anything else I need to know? They might ask, do I get free drinks? But they never ask, you know, what are the production fees? Because a lot of places make you pay for a sound engineer or for a door person. And this is seasoned professionals getting upset about stuff that, as someone that works for these venues, I know full well that those are things, and sometimes you kind of forget. As a booking manager, I ended up making a huge template that literally was like, the day of show details up at the top, the address and stuff. And people that are local would be like, why are you telling me the address? And it's like, because this goes out to everyone, including the touring band. But then down at the bottom, it'd be like, asterisks, according to this, 100% of the door goes to that. If you make this much money, otherwise you're paying, this much per hour for sound. And this is what your hospitality is. And, also, I need follow-up. What are your sound requirements? Because I'm going to put that on my big, long list. And then depending on which sound tech goes and picks up that show, they're going to get, if you have a stage plot and stage map, whatever, they're going to get a picture of that. And they're going to get, your stuff. But, like, I see bands that are like, well, I don't know what my bassist stuff is. And I really feel like, if you're going to be a professional, you should know, like, you're a component of a whole band. You are you have become a royal we when you were in a band, and so you should know how many vocal mics you need, what your bassist needs, what does your drummer like, how many guitars, etc. Like, everyone in that band should know at least a brief idea of, their bandmate stuff. And not just be like, well, that's the bass guys department. But yeah, just know your stuff and learn. Always be nice, even though sound engineers are assholes. I am such an asshole. But, be nice to the people at the venue, because a lot of times the bartender is gonna be like, oh, that band was shitty and they didn't tip me or whatever. You'll never get booked again. Always be extremely nice to the people working there. Always to the venue. Because sometimes they'll go, booking manager person, whoever set up that show, I loved them. And it wasn't just because their music was awesome. It was also the way that I was treated.
Sure.
So just, it seems like common sense, but it's not. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely some good points you don't always hear. I'm going to, early on you said self-care.
Self-care.
Take care of your ears.
Oh, yeah. What?
Seriously. It's such a thing. I mean, everything's like louder than it's ever been.
Yeah.
And I mean, even, if you have headphones on like a cell phone, it even tells you, hey, be careful.
It's a little louder
Don't turn it up all the way.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's easy to brush off and say, yeah, okay. But really, I mean, it's really sad to see people, really talented people, who are losing their hearing at a young age and just not able to continue doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Although I've heard that there's some research into stem cells. I'm 40% deaf in my left ear, so playing the drums, no ear protection. Wow. It's important.
Yeah. So definitely wanted to add that into the advice column there. Here's one that for some reason I just am a stickler about. See if your band name's already taken.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
even before the internet was this thing that it is now, I mean, me and Levi discovered that our first choice band name, Flaming Shit, was already taken.
Darn.
So, yeah, Google that. I was mad. My name is taken by a Brazilian, rock band.
Yeah.
But it's my name. I can't just change my solo name.
I thought it was Chilean.
I think they're Brazilian. It could be Chilean.
I don't know.
South
American band called Elecktra.
Yeah, and wow. I have a Spotify playlist, so I have listened to them.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a big deal just so your stuff doesn't get mixed with a whole bunch of other things. But it's also just, I mean, it's just smart to do from the get-go because, I mean, you're building something with this band, presumably.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're just doing something for kicks. in which case, whatever. But like if you're doing it, really wanting to build a brand with it or just build a following at all. I mean, it really sucks to like get big and then have to change your name.
Yeah.
And I would even add to that and say, like, don't change your name. Like, if you can help it. There's a lot of bands that want to change their name because they lost a member or something. Or, like, they want to go in a new direction. It's like, keep the name. It's okay if you go in a new direction.
You have to start from the ground up.
Yeah, because as far as a lot of people know, now you're just a new band that they've never heard of.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I made my current band be called Elecktra and the Annihilation Carousel.
Right.
Because I lost my entire work of 5 years with the Uncanny Violet Unicorn, which is also a horrible name. Go with something shorter, people.
I liked the Uncanny Violet Unicorn.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think it depends on also just what degree involvement you have with anything. But I just I would do the same thing. Like if I get a full band, it's going to be Jarvix and something.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of singer-songwriters do anyway. I mean, Kyle Reed and the Low Swinging Chariots.
And then
so on.
when you do have, you've searched that your band name is not taken, just immediately, you don't even have to publish anything out, but get your Twitter, get your Instagram, and keep the same handle
across the platforms.
Everything. So it's always at Flaming Shit, if we're using that as an example.
Right.
So it's always easy to search.
Yeah. Do that really early because that's what I did. With Weirder OK.
Yeah. SEO is important nowadays. I'm probably going to cut this podcast in half and just do the second half as a second podcast. So plug your stuff.
Okay, sure.
I am Elecktra, Elecktra. You can find me on Facebook as I think I went with at Electra's Music because, like we were just saying, I'm mostly known as a singer-songwriter, but I do have some not well branded things, like I'm EOS when I do looping things. You can find me at Sauced every Sunday running shows, except for the last Sunday because that's my volunteer appreciation night. And I have some more shows coming up as myself performing, which is wonderful. I'm at Elecktra 5000 on Twitter. And I'm at Elecktra Eclectic. It's impossible to spell. Everywhere that there's a CK, everywhere there's a C, there's a C.
Also a K.
Yeah. So it's at Elecktra Eclectic on Instagram. I like eating food and going to shows and all kinds of stuff. And also my kid, it's not just like a professional Instagram. It's my personal life. But I have a pretty interesting life. Yeah. Most people ask me, how do I get it all done? So you can follow me on just about anything.
Lots of hot dogs. By the way, this one comes out May 16th. So if you have like immediate shows coming up, that's
do I have an immediate show? I will be in getting messaged by my bosses. I will be at Vintage 22 in Ada on May 24th, and it's one of my favorite places. If you're interested in like burgeoning music scenes, like Ada is a hotbed, and like they have some really good support. There's only like 2 places that have music really, and it's kind of like looking back into the past of like, this is probably what like Oklahoma City and Tulsa were like, maybe not 100 years ago, but when there weren't as many places and it's just, I like it. So May 24th, Vintage 22.
Sweet.
Real quick on the advice question. I know. And we're coming up on an hour and a half, I think. But I just wanted to add to, her booking side of things. As an artist, personally, I've gotten a lot of really good experience with, if you're going to ask for show, if you're going to try and get on somewhere, be specific, have something in mind. Don't just randomly throw an email and say, hey, I want a show.
Sure.
That sucks.
God.
Do the work. Actually do the work. Have, take some creative control in what you're doing.
Put out, even if it's simple, an electronic press kit.
Well, yeah. I mean, definitely you want to present yourself too.
Hi, I am this, say what you are in the first sentence. This is my genre. And so many emails. If I can't see it in one page of what you want, and then all the details are later, then I'm just gonna ignore it, and I'm gonna ignore every other follow up that you send to me because you're not being professional.
Yeah, and I mean that's definitely true, and that's definitely a thing. I wanted to add to that and say that if you can basically do some of the booker's work for them,
God.
you'll be so appreciated, and it's such a good way to get a show. I don't ask for a show unless I already have some idea what I want. I already know who I want to play with. I already know a set of dates that I want. I already know if there's going to be a theme or if there's going to be just details about the show that I'm looking for, and whether or not it's going to be compatible with this venue. I just had a Star Wars show on May the 4th, and that was pretty intentional. And I had Dr. Pants on there, and I had Krim on there, and that was something I pitched. I was hey, because I have contact info for the Opolis, and instead of just saying, hey, can I have a show? I'm actually well, I want to bring Krim down. I think Opolis would be a good fit for them. We're thinking a Friday or Saturday in May. And, if you give them specifics like that, it gives them something to work with.
Sure.
And you're already showing that you're doing some of the work instead of just relying on the venue to just take care of you.
Sure.
And honestly, more times than not, that's not only going to get you repeat business and good rapport, but it's going to get you better shows too.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be paired with people that you belong with instead of them trying to figure out where you're going to go.
Sure.
So I just wanted to add that. Plugging my stuff really quick. I don't have any shows coming up at this point because I've had a bunch here recently. And I've got one tentatively coming up in Paul's Valley that's going to be a lot of fun.
Interesting.
But the Stark Art Gallery is a really cool spot that I've been wanting to play at, but no official info on that yet. So but I do have a open mic that I host every month. It's the first Wednesday of the month at the Deli in Norman, which does take all performance types. It can be poetry. It can be comedy. A lot of it's comedy. A lot of it's music. We've had storytelling out there. We've had all kinds of fun stuff. So that's the first Wednesday. It's at 10 o'clock. Sign up is at 10 o'clock. The show's at 10:30 p.m. It's a late one, but it's a lot of fun. That's every first Wednesday of the month at the Deli. And that has its own social media on Twitter. Not Twitter, but it's on Facebook and Instagram at Deli Mike on both of those. If you want to follow me talking about local music, specifically original music from the state of Oklahoma, that's Weirder OK, WEIRDEROK, across Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Also have a website, which is makeoklahomaweirder.com, and now weirderok.com. I bought that URL as well, so that's my website. That's where I keep all that stuff. I have show recommendations. I have vlogs that I put up where I talk about what goes on, and I also have that on IGTV if you're an Instagrammer. Yeah. I have an IGTV channel and have a YouTube channel for that as well, which I've got some sweet new Norman Music Fest videos coming out soon. By the time this is out, those will probably be rolling out. So NMF was a lot of fun this year. I won't go into
So
it.
much good
But
stuff.
if you want to follow me as an artist, I'm Jarvix, Jarvix. That's at Jarvix Schmarvix. Across Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. A little bit of personal stuff mixed in there, but I tend to be pretty private, so it's mostly stupid stuff or music stuff.
Yeah.
And I do announce my shows pretty decently early and give you some awareness whenever I'm going to do stuff. Also, Elecktra as EOS, we do a thing every third Sunday at Sauced.
Yeah.
So if you ever just want to see me improvise with loop pedals, she also improvises with loop pedals. Sometimes we have a special guest. And
Which hopefully will be you
Yes, okay, yeah.
very soon.
I also tend to improvise with lead pedals or delays or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's an experimental night at Sauced. But yeah, Jarvix Schmarvix on all those. Jarvix.net is my website. And I have some videos and some photos and root beer reviews also. So
Nice.
I review various root beers that I get from Pops.
Nice.
More often than not provided to me by Elecktra.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I think that's everything.
Well, and I totally forgot. I have a website. And I'm kind of proud of a thing that I finally went fully public with. But my website is electrasmusic.wixsite.com/awesome because I won't pay for a website. And then one more backsplash resources. I have been building an open source booking sheet, which I keep track of. There's almost 500 bands on there. I have a form submission that makes it a little bit easier. I do screen and make sure that we do not have, like I've said before, any scummy people. And I do, listen to people, and I don't just take, oh, well, you don't like this person, I'm not taking them off the thing. But if they've done something detestable, I do screen and make sure that it's curated to where. And I've had a band that's still on there drop 10 different shows over 2 years, and they're still up there because I appreciate them musically. I just won't personally ever work with them again. But yeah, if you like spreadsheets,
I love spreadsheets.
yeah, that's on the resources page of my website, and I'm pretty proud of it. It's been a hobby that I've been working on for a long time, and I used to only send it out to touring bands when they would hit me up for shows. And now I want it to be used by Oklahoma musicians, and you can put in a form submission, and there is a write-in for genre, but I think I have every genre pretty much more or less covered. And it's not just for music now. As of 3 months ago, I opened it up to comedy and drag. So there's performance art. And I've also been trying to find, other than Molten Sun, more places that do the visual aspect.
Yeah.
So it's a work in progress, and I don't really take off bands that have disbanded. I just I have a little block that I put, black out that they've disbanded, or make it gray if, a singer-songwriter has continued their stuff, but they no longer have a backing band.
Sure.
So, but yeah, nerdy spreadsheets. I love spreadsheets.
Yeah. I'll have you send me that link later so that I can put it in the description of the podcast.
Okay, cool. And you're on there.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And thank you both for doing this with me. I'm very grateful to be able to talk to awesome people and have them on this thing. So I'm Santiago Ramones.
I'm Elecktra Stanislava.
And I'm Jarvix.
You can find everything that I do on my website, santiagoramones.com. I make music. I have a demo called Songs with Words. You can pay for or not pay for however many monies you want to do on that. And I have this podcast on pretty much all of the platforms that you can get it. I also recently made a Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, everything for Power Cycle music. So Power Cycle is a trio of experimental electronic music that started in UCO. So you can find that on all of the things at Power Cycle Music. I always end my podcast with my 3 things. They shape my life philosophy. Those 3 things are: love never fails, it's going to be okay, I might be wrong.